You're listening to Greater Good Radio Hawaii. Please visit us online at greatergoodradio.com. Today's guest is Barry Weinman, co-founder of Allegis Capital. With his wife Virginia, Barry created the Weinman Foundation, which established the Pacific Center for Entrepreneurship at the University of Hawaii. Could you tell us about the Weinman Foundation that you and your wife started?
Well, my wife and I started the Weinman Foundation in 1998, and you know, if you look at the Bill Gates and Melinda Gates Foundation, ours is the same thing, except we have a lot less zeros than they have in the amount of money we have to spend. And what we focused on were things that were important to us. And that's principally been education, children, abused children. And what we do is we look at about 10 to 15 proposals a year, and we tend to focus in on one or two of them. So we focused at UH, at the business school and at the medical school. My wife's on the board of the Children's Alliance. She takes an active role wherever we invest. So we just don't write the check. We try to get involved and get our hands a little dirty.
Have you always been involved in nonprofit work, or was it once, you went public with that company?
Well, it's hard when you're a young entrepreneur to put money, cash is king at the time, and also time, because entrepreneurs are pretty busy, 24/7 type of a life. But in the back of our minds, we were helped by a lot of people, and we always said someday we're going to do the same thing back. And our goal was, when we were financially able, we would help at least entrepreneurs. So that's part of our work at the Pacific Asian Center for Entrepreneurship at UH. And part of it was to make sure that kids who were maybe disadvantaged got a better chance. So I grew up in a pretty rough, poor neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York, and very few people made it out of there. And I said, someday, hopefully, we'll be able to help kids make it out, maybe from not the best environment. And my wife came from a very entrepreneurial family. Her father was an immigrant to Canada, didn't speak the language, built up a very successful business. So she lived through that process and said she wanted to do the same thing. So we were kind of united in that idea. And we've put most of our effort and money into scholarships and into helping entrepreneurs, and we love it.
And why? I mean, why are you helping entrepreneurs? What is it that your experience has made such a difference through the other people that have helped you?
Well, it's the future, right? I mean, if you think about innovation and new ideas and lifting the standards of living of people, healthcare, maybe curing cancer or something like that, who's going to do that? It's going to be our entrepreneurs. I mean, it tends not to happen in large companies. It tends not to happen in bureaucracies. It happens by some person who says, I have the vision, I'm going to do it, but they need some help.
And then why Hawaii?
Well, we love Hawaii. I met my wife here. I was stationed in Pearl Harbor. She was a student at the University of Hawaii. We actually met in Hamilton Library. And I still think I have a book there that I haven't returned yet, so I probably have to do that. But she was willing to marry me at the time when I was making $238 a month. We could live in Hawaii. We lived at Radford Terrace, which is Navy housing, and so it was our start. Now we left after a number of years, and we lived in many other places in the world, but we always wanted to come back.
And then when did you know it was time that you could come back?
Well, I think it was Christmas of '98 or '99, our Christmas plans fell apart. We were supposed to party with some or do some things with family and friends. And so our tendency was, whenever that happened, we'd just run down to the airport and get on the next plane going to someplace that was interesting. As it turned out, the next plane going to someplace warm was going to Oahu. So we said, hey, we haven't been to Oahu in a long time. Why don't we do that? We got off and we snuck our way into the Royal Hawaiian, which is a great place to reacquaint yourself with Hawaii, and we fell in love with it again. And we've been coming back ever since, and then we moved here in May of 2004 permanently.
What message could you give the younger people who are building their careers to encourage them to get involved in nonprofit organizations?
Well, I think most young people that I've talked to say, well, I don't have the money and I don't have the time. And that's true. But what they can do is they can do things like, for example, a number of the young entrepreneurial companies in Hawaii, they donate some equity. So, for example, Dustin Shindo at Hoku has given 25,000 shares to the University of Hawaii. Patrick Sullivan at Hawana has given 50,000 shares to the University of Hawaii. Hawaii Biotech has given shares. Now, those shares aren't cash out of their pocket, but what those shares have done, in Dustin Shindo's case, when his company went public, that turned into about $150,000 for the university. That can create projects, it can create programs, it can involve the people at Hoku back into the university so that they can participate in those programs. So they can be doing things that help their company at the same time, and yet at the same time it's not cash out of their pocket, and it's somewhat of an interest to what they're thinking about. So those are ways where I think people can start to think about, maybe I can contribute other than cash. I can contribute some equity in my company. I can contribute by maybe teaching a class or being a participant in a class. Those are areas where they can get started.
Thanks for joining us today on Greater Good Radio. For more information or a transcript of today's show, please visit us online at greatergoodradio.com. This is your host, Evan Leong and Carrie Leong, saying please join us next time for another episode of Greater Good Radio, Hawaii.